With me today is Brent Hall. He is a hydroplane racer and a friend of mine. Brent, welcome back to our show. Well, actually, this is the first time you've been on the show, actually. But welcome.
Okay. Hey, I feel like I've already been here. So, because we've known each other for years. So yeah, it's a little bit of what we've always talked about, but now we're just recording it. That's all.
Brent, I wanna get everybody out there who doesn't know you, and there's quite a lot of people out there who do know you that's going to watch this video. But for the ones who haven't, who are you, and what type of hydroplanes do you race?
Yeah, sure. So everyone, Brent Hall, and I am a dad, a hydroplane racer, a fan, and just love life. And for those of you who haven't met me yet, I sure love interacting with people, and that's how I got to know Abraham. We've worked together in the wireless industry. We worked back in the wireless industry for several years, and then but to get a chance to drive hydroplanes has been a dream come true. So that's something since I was a kid. I grew up on Mercer Island and used to watch them from our deck there, and to even touch one, let alone drive one, is absolutely amazing.
Hello, Peter. What's happening?
How does a director at a call center, a well-respected man with a family and with a nice two-car garage and yard and I
Yep,
assume pets, how do you go from the corporate world, and I assume you're still in the corporate world, but how do
I
you
am.
how do you pick up hydroplane racing as a, is it a hobby, is it a game, is it a way of life? What led you to it?
Yes. Again, you kind of fall into this, like, well, and I'll say for me. Now, many hydroplane drivers started when they were 9, or third and fourth generation racers. So I didn't have that opportunity. I started when I was 36, and actually I started with radio control of all things. So I was driving radio control boats and happened to meet a gentleman named Skip Young, and he said, "Hey, how would you like to meet the first African American to drive at Seafair?" And I said, "You don't have to ask me twice. Where is he at?" And we went, found Harold Mills, who's one of my mentors, and I asked to volunteer on his crew. And then I quickly figured out that I do love hydroplane racing and want to be around it. I thought I'd really focus more on the marketing side of things, but he retired that next year, and I was getting good at the marketing. So I thought, maybe let me at least try leasing a boat, at least one from Bud McKay, and really the rest is history. That was 2006.
That's fantastic. I didn't realize you were the first African American to represent at Seafair. But I,
Not me, that actually Harold Mills. Harold was the first, and he paved waves for me. And then, I'm really looking to finish out something that he started, which was getting qualified as an unlimited driver. And he got some laps in. My goal is to become qualified, and that's where I would be the first.
Great. Now, a couple of years ago, I went down to Seafair. I was trying to find you, but I couldn't find you. You guys are obviously
Sure.
quite busy. But I did see you out there on the water. Now, you're not in one of the largest boats. You're in the next level down. Is that, what do they call that?
Maybe let me explain some of that. We're getting a little bit of clipping, so I don't know if that's on my end or not. But I race Grand Prix, which is a big block V8, about 1,500 horsepower. We hit about $150 out down the straightaway, so we're still hauling the mail. Now, I have had the chance to test drive an unlimited. I did that back in 2012 in the U9, and in that one, my average speed was 139 and about 74 away. So I've had the chance to test drive one, and my ultimate goal would be to get a chance to drive one and become qualified.
Oh my gosh. So that's only a 20-mile-per-hour difference.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I'm going to tell you the difference between the two. The unlimited is a little bit like a school bus, and I'm sure that's not the word you'd think I would describe it with, but it just takes a while for those to get up and going, and by the time you're moving, you'll just see buoys. You're like, okay, I'm moving, and then once you hit the corner, it's about 3.5 Gs, and then you're like, yeah, I am going fast. Now, Grand Prix, when you step on it, it grunts and squirrels, and you really have to oversteer, understeer to keep it straight. So the power to weight ratio in a Grand Prix, it's pretty, it's a handful. It's a handful. Now, not saying that the unlimited's not. It absolutely is. And you also have to think about the waves and the rooster tails that an unlimited carves up is so much bigger than a Grand Prix. But both are very challenging, but in different ways. And I'm excited to learn more about driving unlimited. I mean, when you see that wall of water, and that's tons of water that is right next to you, and any little slip, you're going into it and you could go up and over. So you really have to be on your game and really looking for your marks to ensure that you know where you're going and how to stay safe.
I was thinking about you the other day when I found out that Seafair was going to be canceled. So that means no races this year?
That is what it means for Seafair, and we'll see what happens with the other races. I know Tri-Cities is deciding June 2nd. I think they have a meeting, but yeah, I kind of joked on Facebook. I just said I needed a day. We had a picture of a fire and some marshmallows, and I said I was going to listen to some Sade, only one day, and then I'd be good to go. But I totally understand why. We got to keep everybody safe, and better safe than sorry. At the same time, yeah, I'm going to miss Seafair. It's been a tradition, whether a fan or a racer, and now we just have to figure out how we do it differently.
So in light of recent events, how do you see what's going on right now impacting your sport in the future? Do you think there will be rule changes? Do you ever think we'll go back to the way it was, where we can host these events in a large park like Seafair usually is held, or in large gatherings like the boats on the boom?
Yeah, time will tell. Obviously, if there's a vaccine, well, that changes everything. But if there's not, no, I think there is a new norm. And for me, as a hydroplane racer and loving people, big thing for me was high-fiving kids, getting them into our boat. The way things are right now, that's probably something we won't be able to do. So we do have to think about that. And you asked, hey, I work in the corporate world as well, and I have call center employees that we were able to get to work from home. But now thinking about, how do we bring them back towards the end of the year? Gosh, what does that look like? And we have a lot that still has to be decided. And I know there's some really smart people that are taking a look at this and trying to figure out what's the best way to bring people back to work in my job, but also how do you bring people back to participate in the sport? And we'll see. And I think right now a lot of us are trying to figure out, well, worst case scenario, if fans aren't able to show up, then how do we bring them along with us using technology and give them even more data and information and things to be excited about? But you think about it, the kids today, they're a gaming community and love being online and love data. So I think there's a way to still marry the two together. It just might look different. That's all.
That's fantastic. You were talking about loving data. I'm sorry, this was not on the list of questions.
That's all right. No, roll.
But I was curious, are there a lot of analytics that go into what you do, i.e., are you hooked up with sensors, or is your boat hooked up to sensors and you look at those kind of metrics, or is that still in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Not as much me, although it'd be interesting to see what my heart rate is when I hit the corner. But what we really look at is telemetry in the boat, and that is everything from exhaust gas temperature, because if it's too hot, those are indicators to where the motor is about to blow. We also look at fuel flow. We look at prop speed, RPM, miles per hour. Even some boats have telemetry to see how you're working the front wing, because if you're putting too much front wing in it, you're smashing the boat down and not letting it air out. And for those of you who don't know, as a hydroplane, the whole goal is to keep it riding above the water, and you want to keep enough air under it so there's less drag. And if you have too much air, obviously it goes over. If you don't have enough air, then it doesn't go fast. And that's that happy medium that you have to find. And a lot of the telemetry helps us figure out, well, where are we at? And is this the right skid fin? Or we change the prop, and the prop is a bigger prop, so that means it's more drag on the motor, maybe lower RPM, but it may have more pitch, so it pushes harder. There's all these different factors, and that's one of the things as a fan, I had no idea how much went into boat racing, and just even boat setup, you name it. And luckily we have a very talented crew on all the different boats that I've ever raced for that figure a lot of that out for me. But as a driver, I'm the person who needs to give them feedback. Like, was it driving straight, or did we tuck the fin too much? Do you feel like you're going to hook? There's all that kind of data and telemetry that we talk about. And that's what makes it really interesting.
That is pretty fascinating. I have some other questions for you, and I feel like maybe in a future point, I want to get back into the technical aspect of this.
Sure.
With you and your crew, because I find that having worked for you in the wireless capacity, that kind of stuff is interesting to me. But I want to get a little bit into the new norm that we're in, as far as COVID-19. And I'm curious, how does, when you mentioned to me that 3G, you're facing 3Gs when you go into these corners.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for this kind of thing if you can't get into a boat and do it? I mean, how do you train? What's your fitness regime like when you're not able to be out there on the water?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, COVID-19 has thrown some challenges, but also some opportunities when it comes to fitness. Like anybody, the better shape you're in, the more you'll be able to endure some of the pressure that a driver deals with. But for me, I'm mostly on the treadmill. That's kind of my thing, treadmill, or there's something called the Zero Runner that I use a lot, and that is like an elliptical, but it has more of a running motion. And for me, I've been struggling a little bit with the workout, working from home and not really walking from my car to work or from my desk to the cafeteria. I noticed my steps are down, so I have really been either plugging into like the Peloton app, or I can tell you that today I went kind of nuts. I was just like, man, I've got a free day, and I did 4 hours on the Zero Runner. It was like nuts. I think the total was 28, just a little over 28 miles, and that's the farthest I've ever gone. But I think some of that was to make up for the refrigerator being so close to where I work and where I eat. And so I was like, it's time to get on it. But here's the thing you need to know about boat racing, and not so much in the big boats, but I have a smaller boat too. That boat, if I weigh more than the other drivers, that's a disadvantage. And so if a driver is 150, you're in a better place. If you were 250, then the boat's not going to go very fast. And it's figuring out how to get your weight down to where you're at a bare minimum. Now, the Grand Prix and the Unlimited doesn't make a difference, but my little boat makes a big difference.
Just basic science, right? Force over mass.
You got it. You got it. And it's very underpowered. It's got a 45 Evinrude on it. It weighs about 700 pounds with me in it. So everything is about just finding the little advantages, and weight is a big one.
Fascinating. I've got a question for you. Athletes typically have a shorter career than, you're an athlete. There's no way to get around, like racers are athletes. You have to be able to, like you said, put up with 4G, and you have to watch your weight and whatnot.
Yeah.
You typically have a shorter career. By the time you're 90, you're not going to be racing, right? It's a tough question for me to ask, but I want to ask it. What's it like having a year taken away from you?
Yeah. When I thought about this, a couple things. One, I just can't look at it that way because I started late. So many years were taken away from me. The guys that I raced against, many of them have 20 plus years of experience on me. So I've got to make that up anyway. And for me, I focus on what I can do. And what I can do is continue to work out, watch onboard videos. I can work to improve our sponsors, which is a big part of boat racing. And what makes you go fast is more money. So that there's a part of it too. But what I would back up and say is that I'm not so worried about losing the year. I'm going to take the advantage of spending time and just reaching out to our sponsors, and if we can do anything when it comes to displays, that's a big part of our family that people don't realize. You can't do that alone. And we've had sponsors help with Les Schwab come into the sport. We have worked with Volkswagen dealers and Pignataro and Overturf. and many smaller sponsors and sponsors of all kinds. And really, they're what make you go fast. Now, yes, as a driver, you do need to be an athlete, but it's the athlete in the boat and then the boat itself. And boy, if you have a great boat and great equipment and you know how to use it, all those things combined is what really makes someone a winner.
Right on. I don't want to get the IRS involved. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about the business, but let's not get into numbers or anything like that. But
Yeah.
How does your business plan change? Because you can't be at Seafair, so I'm certain there's some sort of loss of revenue there, or at least
There is.
Yeah. How does that play out? What do you have to think about going forward?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was just talking to my mentor, Jerry Hopp, and he's the one who's given me the opportunity to drive a Grand Prix for the last several years. And it's tough. This is a lot of the work that happens are volunteers. When you go out and race and pay for hotels and equipment that breaks, all that stuff costs. And, that team, we count on sponsorship to make it run, and they are working on the boat year round. And so not to have a Seafair, which is where we gain the majority of our sponsorship for the entire year. He's got some other great sponsors that help us too, but a lot of how we make it up is Seafair, and that puts a big monkey wrench in it. So yeah, I mean, the penny pinching has already begun. How do we make sure that we keep things afloat so that we're ready for next year? And that's definitely part of the business. Just like any business that's out there, we have to keep running and figure out how we keep things going while no revenue is coming in.
Great, thank you. I'm kind of curious, both for yourself and for your community, so other racers and the boat crews involved. What's the level of enthusiasm? Has it diminished at all in light of recent events?
Sure. No, I don't think so. And here's why. If you love boat racing, you love boat racing. 1 year is not going to make that difference. But is it frustrating? Sure. My goodness. This is something we all look to for every August since I can remember. And so I think that part's hard. But there are some interesting things that are happening in the sport that COVID-19 maybe brought on, where there's H1 Unlimited just had a race this weekend, and it's e-racing league, and very cool. Just like NASCAR or F1, we've got folks that are actually driving the exact replica of the unlimited hydroplanes, and they have replicas of each of the boats that actually run. And these drivers, they're driving them just like they were the driver in the actual boat. Amazing. It was fun to watch the race. The speed of the races happening back and forth were great. You had flips, and people were able to just only get a 1 minute penalty, and the computer sets them back on the boat, and lives aren't at risk. But boy, I think all of us still, even the folks that are doing the e-racing league, will be really excited when the actual unlimited hydroplane racing comes back.
Fantastic. E-racing is the video game version, is that right?
It is, yeah. I think it's based on it's a car game called R Factor that they have taken and modified it to show the unlimited teams and exact replicas. I mean, it is really amazing how detailed, and the rooster tails look real. They've done an amazing job. It's really cool. I think it's on my Facebook page if anyone ever wants to go see it. I think it's something worth checking out.
Can you give people your Facebook page?
Sure, of course. It's
Brent Hall Racing.
It's just Brent Hall Racing. That's the easy one.
Great. And do you have a Twitter as well?
I do. Brent Hall Racing on Twitter. I keep it easy, right?
I knew the answer to both of those, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, thank you for the plug. I appreciate that.
I realize boat racing may not have the same level of fan interaction, because the fans are sitting on the shore or in their boats on the boom. But I'm kind of curious, what is it like for you as the racer if you were to participate in an event without fans?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to figure out a way to connect with fans. That's just what I do. So if it's not at the race side, I just watched a little bit of the NASCAR race today and saw the drivers with the masks on and no one in the stands. But there is still a way, whether it's like we're doing today, telling stories and talking about the things that we're really proud of, connecting with people on social media. It's amazing how much fan interaction happens there that you just wouldn't have had, say, 15, 20 years ago. So there's really still an opportunity to connect with fans, and we're going to continue to do that. And that's just so important to me and what I really enjoy.
Great. Do you think that there's going to be any rule changes, or at least how you conduct business when we do go, once we've passed this current situation?
Yeah, I do. I do. I mean, as much as I'd love to say, you know what, there's a vaccine out there that's going to take care of everything, I do think we have a new norm where we may not be able to get people as close to the boats or be as close to them. Again, like I said, we would be high-fiving kids and sticking them in the boat. And those are probably things that we'll have to think twice about. But again, maybe it's that there's temperature checks to make sure people are okay and people are wearing masks, or there's different ways to protect each other. And I think that's the thing. It's just, how do we, and I know everyone has different opinions on masks, but for me, if I was wearing a mask, it would be out of respect for you. Like, I would never want to think that I ever gave you something. So I'm wearing a mask, not because I'm afraid for myself. I'm afraid for you or for anyone else. Just, I wouldn't want anything to happen to anybody.
I would foresee that the big impact would be the inability for random people just to sit in the boats. Because sometimes I've done that before, where I get to come down and like sit in a boat.
Yep.
That might be a thing of the past.
It might be, but guess what? Could we do it in a different way? We can now bring them along in the boat via video, and it's cool to sit in a boat, right? But to actually be in the boat and see my head trying to keep it off the windshield, that's pretty cool. Or maybe there's ways that we can even kind of talk and engage with fans while we're waiting for the next heat and tell them what we're thinking. Or I just think there's going to be some ways that we can use technology to really help them maybe see even more than they did just sitting in it, but maybe we can do it in a different way.
How have you been keeping yourself busy? I know that your call center, you guys are probably all remote these days. And, as far as the racing, you probably have to do a lot of, like you said, you have to do your exercise at your home on your treadmill.
Yep.
How you been holding up?
Well, yeah, it all centers around my wife and our 9-year-old son, Brent Jr. And for him, it's been tough. My wife works in healthcare, and she works specifically with seniors. So we've really been on lockdown. We haven't been able to go out and hang out with friends, even just, our close-knit friends, just because she works with folks with compromised immune systems. And imagine that's tough on a 9-year-old. So we've really been spending time with him. We went swimming today and hung out. He played Minecraft. That's his big thing. And we have definitely binge watched a few shows. Like right now, I think we've watched The Last Dance. We saw that. Boy, what an amazing number of events there. I just loved it. And then we also, watch movies like Annie with Jamie Foxx. So we're all over the board, just trying to keep everybody happy. And Brent's doing school from home, checking on his homework and making sure he goes to bed at the right time. But that's been the big focus. And then obviously with at home, I find that I've probably worked longer hours than I ever have. And we have meetings just like this with my employees, just to make sure we get a chance to chat and talk via video. And I shared like, hey, what's life like for COVID-19 at the Hall House? And I think that put people at ease. We're all going through this, and it's a tough time, but we're going through it together.
So fascinating you say that about work, because I think about how I have to take work home with me now.
Yeah. It's a totally different world. But I'm very grateful. I do know I've got friends that are out of work, or you name it, people who've had businesses they started that really require that person-to-person interaction, and they're not able to run their businesses right now. Boy, that's heartbreaking. So I do really hope for everything to recover soon, and for everyone involved, but just making sure that we're all safe too.
Great. What's the first thing you're going to do once we get back to some sort of semblance of normalcy? What's the first thing you're going to do?
Even, hey man, I'm a hugger. So there's, family members that I want to hug, just, and as dap for friends on the back. That was in my DNA. So if we can get back to that point, that would be huge for me.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
By the way, I do want to have another call with you where we don't talk about COVID, and
Sure.
I want to get into the technical aspects of what you do, especially with the technology. But I would like to ask you if there's something you'd love to say to the people out there who watch you race and who may want to watch you race in the future. Is there any message you'd like to send to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just very simple. It's Hydroplanes, Brent Hall. I just understand it's a people business. I'm all about connecting with people. So however we get to do this as we come out of this, it means the world to me to get a thumbs up or a like on a picture or a great job, Brent. So all those people who've sent positive notes and have shared that they are supporting me, you have no idea how much that means to me, and whether it's now, in the past, or in the future. And we just, again, hydroplanes, it really is about coming together and learning about this amazing sport that I've followed for years. And if you get a chance to chat with me, whether it's in person or it's in video, I'm happy to share anything about it, because there may be another Brent out there that's thinking about, gosh, that looks pretty cool. And wow, he's a really neat guy. Maybe I'd want to be like him someday. And if I do that for anybody, then job well done.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Brent Hall. Oh, by the way, if you want to post out there, or if you want to put out there any plug that you want to throw in, I know you did the Twitter handle a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to, like where are you racing next, or yeah.
Sure. So for me, we don't know where we're racing next, but I would just say follow me on Facebook, Brent Hall Racing. I don't use the Twitter account as much. I'm really more of a Facebook guy. Sorry, not a Snapchat person either. I gotta grow younger there, because I know our younger folks like Snapchat, so I gotta work on that. Maybe I need to throw some TikTok videos in while I'm starting to get together for next year. But I really probably think either the next race that I'll be in will be late this year, and it might be with my smaller boat, or next year. And that's okay. We'll stay in touch. We'll share updates about how we're doing in the off season, how I'm getting into shape and staying away from that refrigerator, and then we'll go from there. But that's it. We'll stay in touch on social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Brent. Again, I got to do this again with you. And
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for joining us.